It's so wild to me that so many women talk about narcissism, but the society today is just catering to narcissistic women. If I post a picture online, a bikini picture online, there's nothing my husband can do that could compete with that level of accolade.
Attention.
Impossible.
The compliments, the attention, the messaging, the you're so sexy and beautiful, and all these different things from thousands or potentially millions of men
around the world
who have money and all these things.
Yeah, and there's nothing he can do. He can't post online and get the same reaction. And more so, he can't give me the same level of validation.
Oh my gosh.
So what's happened is we've created a setup in society that means men have to compete with a level of validation they can't compete with. And if they go online, if they join Tinder, that night they can have so many more options than a man can, because we've got filters and we've got all of these. Again, I really am privy to this myself. I'm a filter queen. So, but the things I can do to manipulate male validation,
to get more attention from men,
just soothe myself and to remind myself I'm above this. I don't need him. I can replace him. Is something men actually can't do. So they have to rely on pornography for that. They replace us with pornography, and we replace them with likes and comments on social media.
Wow. How did this happen? Like, why do you think, is this a values thing, a lack of values thing? Is this okay, if I feel wounded or I feel some type of trauma, I need an emotional release, and so this makes me feel good, and then it's just a slippery slope into more and more? How does this start, and when does it end?
I think it comes from the fact that we've created a culture that whenever there's a problem, there's a temporary solution that doesn't get rid of the root. So what I mean by that is, if there's a problem with intimacy for men and they're not getting women, there's pornography. If there's a problem of low self-esteem in women because they don't have meaning and purpose, they can post a few pictures online. We've created a way of solving problems that doesn't get rid of the root. So we're always seeking highs. And the problem with highs is they come with lows. So you end up having more problems, more low self-esteem, and then seeking bigger highs to get that kind of back to neutral state. So I think the problem comes with problems being solved by seeking highs and a real focus on kind of values that are very empty materialistic values. So you are a beautiful, high-value woman if you're really, really beautiful. And you're a high-value man now if you are really, really rich. But there's nothing to do with connection and intimacy that now gives us status. And I think that's come from social media mainly.
Where does this lead over the next 3 to 5 years with this narcissistic, society, I guess, that's been built in this way? What happens for people in relationships? Are people able to find intimacy and connection and stay committed and be actually happy in a healthy relationship, or is it only going to get worse?
It leads to intense and pervasive loneliness, unfortunately.
Really?
And it probably will only get worse. Unfortunately, until we wake up to the impact of technology, both on men and women, it's going to lead to a complete identity crisis, external kind of extrinsic values that don't benefit anybody, which then manifests in depression and loneliness, self-inflicted depression and loneliness. Yeah, when I say depression and loneliness, it's not like I have a disease or anything. It's self-inflicted through poor choices. So unfortunately, it's going to lead to men not being able to commit to women because they can get all of the joys of sexual relationships without having to invest, and women not being able to commit to men because they can get all the validation of male attention without having to adapt and change themselves according to the needs of the relationship.
What happens when men and women never commit?
They find themselves unable to put somebody else's well-being above their own. So we're creating people who are entirely individualistic, deprived of responsibility, and unable to care and nurture for others because they're not putting somebody else's well-being above theirs. When you are unable to commit, essentially you wake up every single day saying, what do I want to do? What do I want to do today? And as nice and as freeing as that is, it deprives you of human responsibility. And in order to truly become something, we're designed to be responsible. We're designed to be valuable. We're designed to serve others. This is how we've evolved. So becoming completely individualistic leads to a sense of lonely narcissism, I believe.
What is the age generation of, in your opinion, of the highest amount of narcissistic men and women? Is it people from 15 to 22? Is it 20s to 30s? Like, what is the age group that you see as the most extreme narcissist?
I would imagine it would be from 15 to 25. This is without any research onto it. I would imagine so because They're raised to serve their desires, not serve others. We have raised children to serve themselves in every way, shape, and form. So whether that is through, pornographic intimacy, sending each other Snapchats of each other nude. This is something that was alien. Like in our generation, it was unheard of. But the average 12-year-old is now put under pressure to send nudes to the other average. And one thing I had
Really? 12-year-olds?
12-year-olds. I used to be a teacher, so I used to experience this a lot where
12-year-olds are sending nudes on Snapchat to each other?
To each other. Coerced, to all volunteer.
Just to get more attention, right?
Yeah.
Or to get...
And what's so weird is when you work with children, we're always told about predators, and we're always told about sexual assault from old predators. But you would be so surprised at the level and age of sexual predators now. They're aged between 12 and 15 now. 12 to 15-year-olds are now becoming predatory because they're so saturated by sex that they've dehumanized connection, and they see it as part of growing up.
Well, I mean, why would a 12 or 13 or 15-year-old girl send a nude to another 12, 13 or 15-year-old boy?
Because they're growing up with role models who post on OnlyFans. They're growing up being told that you don't actually need an education. You can make $50,000 a month if you just post the right pictures online. So when you are told that and you are bored to death in a maths class and you're being told to learn about parameters of a rectangle that you don't care about, or you can see a really sexy girl talk about how much money she's making, where is a child going to go? Particularly when they're not raised in a home or environment which boosts their self-esteem and emphasizes internal morals. So why are our children going to go? It's not their fault at all. It's the society we've created and what we've glamorized and highlighted for children.
That's interesting because Martha, my girlfriend, she'll say that her dad did a really great job when she was, 10, 11, 12, 13, when boys started to show attention, right?
Yeah.
He did a really great job. I'm paraphrasing what she told me, that he used to say, listen, guys are going to tell you you're beautiful. You already know that.
Yeah.
So don't be wowed when they say you're beautiful, you're pretty, you look attractive. Like, know that you have other values to contribute. And if they don't see those other things, then okay, just they're friends, but don't buy into that type of game.
Well, don't let that be the most interesting thing about
Exactly.
you. And what I find a little bit strange about being online is I'll get a lot of comments about my makeup and my appearance or whatever it is, which is very, very nice. But I didn't understand why that would even be part of the conversation. And I would imagine it's because they assume that if you have a certain appearance, why would you even bother working on your education? Because they almost see it as binary. If you've got one, you don't need the other. Well, you absolutely need the other. Because it's the only thing that will exist forever. Your looks is the only depreciating asset you have.
Wow.
So why would you want to derive your value from it and your self-esteem from it? We know it's depreciating.
Because what happens when the looks start to fade in women who've only put their value in their physical appearance? What happens?
Well, what happens is they end up with men who are equally shallow. Here's the thing. If I'm just a pretty face, I'm going to end up with a man who only likes pretty faces. Now, the reality is that man is so easily distracted with the next pretty face and the next 25-year-old and the next. So what will happen is you're in a constant competition with people you can't compete with for the rest of your life. And similarly, if I was somebody who just sold sex and I'm going to find a man who's addicted to sex. And men that are addicted to sex will always want novelty. You'll never be enough. So reality is when you create your identity on something so fragile, you attract somebody who's also very fragile, and then you end up in a lonely cycle, unfortunately.